Hi everybody, and welcome to our Flow Conversations channel. In today's session I'm going to talk a little bit about data management and just answer the question around where potentially is my industrial data. A little bit of a cliche, but you can only manage what you can measure, and I think that's very relative in today's age with all the technology and all the service providers out there providing tech in this space. Now, there's a lot of that, right? And our industry, unfortunately, in the industrial manufacturing world is littered with buzzwords of new tech, littered with three-letter acronyms. My purpose here today is not to try to confuse you, definitely not trying to throw more three-letter acronyms at you, but this is what we face with, right? There's these three-letter acronyms and everybody thinks and have this notion that you know what all of this is. For the guys, and you might think what's in the soup there when you read some of these three-letter acronyms and you don't really know what they mean. Just for clarity, that is actually the World Taekwondo Federation and not what you thought it was. Anyway, so coupled with that, what is a session or a virtual video or a conversation in 2021 without actually talking about digital transformation? It feels that you have to talk about it. There's numerous technologies and new advances in technology that actually makes digital transformation a little bit tangible than what it was in the past. Now, each consultant, each vendor will have its kind of definition of what digital transformation is. This is not me trying to be clever. This is from two consulting houses, PwC and Deloitte, their definition of digital transformation. But the key thing that I take away from any definition of digital transformation is that it's not just about the technology. It's not about 4IR. It's not about IIoT. It's the concept of encompassing the technology with your processes, very important, your people, and it has to be done enterprise-wide. I think if it's not included in the entire enterprise, then the digital transformation strategy might not bear the results or the ROI that it needs to from the capital that's been invested in it. So when we talk about people and processes, not just about technology, where do people and processes meet when it comes to data or when it comes to information that they need to discuss on? Well, 9 times out of 10, that's probably going to happen in some sort of meeting. I think everybody that's been on an industrial plant and has been in a boardroom in an industrial plant would have noticed a peripheral of whiteboards, all with production numbers and production figures and targets and downtime information written on those whiteboards. And these are the things that people use and people discuss in order to make meaningful information around what they need to go and act on and improve on their process. All right, but there's quite a lot of interesting characters in those meetings, and I'm sure you guys have met all of them. And I'm going to use an analogy of Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. And believe it or not, they actually have very real implications on every people that we encounter in meetings when it comes to industrial data and the space that we play in, which is the information space. So let's meet some of these dwarfs or some of these characters that we encounter in those meetings. And remember, digital transformation needs to cater for these people as well. Now, every group will have a doc. A doc, dwarf, he's the innovator. He's the guy with all the new clever ideas. And the only problem with doc is that he would probably implement his clever idea without really knowing if it's going to bear fruits. So it's unproven, it's untested, but in doc's mind, this is going to be the thing that's going to solve all our problems. The next dwarf that we're going to encounter in our meetings is probably going to be sneezy dwarf. Now, he's rather loud, he's obnoxious. Sometimes you don't know why you work with him or why he's in your team. But the cool thing about Sneezy is that he always pulls through at the right time. He's the guy that you can phone 10 o'clock at night and he's going to sort it out and he's going to give you the information that you require. So the point about him is that it doesn't matter how much process data you have, store them. Start historizing those process data because you never know when you're going to have questions to answers that unutilized data is going to provide for you. So we need to start thinking about that. Then we've got Happy Dwarf. He's the dreamer. He has the notion that anything and everything is possible. It's for him more about the journey than the actual destination. But the thing about Happy is He needs to understand how the data that we're logging interacts with everybody in the information. So we have to make sure that we give the data to the right people and that they can make the right informed decisions based on that. And then we've got Grumpy. Grumpy is the stagnator. He's the guy that's probably been working in the industry for 20 or 30 odd years. He's probably seen everything from ripping out relay logic all the way now to IoT in the cloud. He might be a little bit negative. He might think that the diamond that the dwarves are mining for in the story is a myth. It doesn't exist, like it's a unicorn. So he's a little bit skeptic about all of these new technologies and new processes and new things that are being thrown to him. He's probably the most tricky one that we need to try and shift. So there definitely needs to be a mind shift into Grumpy for him to embrace and make sure that he can use the technology in a way that's going to actually make his day job quicker, faster, and actually save him some time at the end of the day. And then we've got Bashful. Now, Bashful is a little bit shy. He doesn't like things that are out of his comfort zone. And the same can be for new employees, the younger generation, or somebody that you give a new task for, a new piece of software for. They might be afraid to play with the software. They might be afraid that they're going to break something. It happens. You accidentally download to the wrong PLC or whatever case, and you stop the entire plant. The notion is that we need to give a playpen, and we need to give these guys an environment that they can actually play with the software, that they can feel comfortable in the way that they're going to implement their solutions and roll it out. So they shouldn't be afraid to try new things. They shouldn't be afraid to very quickly change a KPI or a measurement. Because only if you have this agile approach of changing and reintroducing things into your plant will you actually bear the benefits. I don't think that you can just have a report and the report is going to be there for the next 10 years. It needs to evolve, it needs to look at new KPIs, and we need to have the freedom and the capability to go and make those changes without being afraid that we're going to actually break something on the plant floor. And then we've got Dopey. Now, if you look at Dopey, you might think, goodness gracious, he doesn't really know what he's talking about. He's just the guy that's always horse playing. He's the guy that always makes jokes. But the thing about Dopey is don't always judge a book by the looks of his cover, right? And the nice thing about what Dopey can teach us is that we shouldn't look at data as it's being presented now. There might be a few things that we can uncover if we look historically at the data. So very important is, yes, real-time KPIs and real-time data is very important, but historical information linked to that data is just as important for baselining and to make sure that we actually are improving. What was the figure last week? What was the figure a month ago? Are we actually in an upwards or a downwards trend? And that's the great thing about historizing and have historical KPIs that we can actually benchmark across our information, make sure that our initiatives are actually bearing fruit. And then we've got Sleepy. He is very selfish. He just wants to sleep. He just wants to dream. He doesn't care about sharing the load. He doesn't care about helping the dwarfs mine. And that's typically what we find on a solution as well, that you've got these certain people of individuals that tries to hold all the knowledge for themselves, all the information for themselves, all the reporting for themselves. I don't know if it's job security or whatever the case is, but he wants to feel that he is the one that's got all the answers. And unfortunately, if we talk about digital transformation, we talk about this whole concept of enterprise-wide, information cannot live in these silos anymore. We have to share the information. We have to share it all the way from exec level down to boardroom level. Yes, the way that we're going to present that information might be different from an exec to an operator, but all of these guys have some influence on the actual production of your plant. And we need to start sharing the information and make it more accessible for everybody to see where the operations are heading or not. All right, now this is all about the people and the processes, and the thing that we talked about was a meeting, right? So the next conversation or session that we're going to have is I'm going to actually uncover and unpack, I'm sorry about it, but I have to teach you another 3-letter acronym. It's called IDA. It stands for Inform, Decide, and Act. And the next session that we're going to have is I'm going to unpack these and have a little bit more tactical examples of how we can use this kind of concept in our meetings so that we can actually have constructive meeting, not getting bogged down by the different personalities like all of the dwarfs fighting around information in the meeting. Remember, a meeting is all about having an actionable outcome based on the information that you review in that meeting. A meeting should never ever be around fighting around a number that you need to report on. So please stay tuned for our next conversation, where I'm going to uncover those three topics for us.